My brother's son.
Your brother's son. And do you have any other siblings?
Yes, I do. I did have two sisters along with the brother.
Okay. And who raised you and your siblings?
I'm sorry.
Who raised you and your siblings?
My mother and my stepdad, but the three other siblings were mainly raised with their paternal grandmother for a while until I was born, and we went with my stepdad.
Okay. And why were they with your maternal?
With the paternal?
Grandmother.
My mother was an alcoholic, and she just didn't want them. The only thing I can think of.
And when did your siblings end up leaving home?
My oldest sister left at 16. My brother left at 13, and my other sister left at 15.
So, tell me about your brother, Terry Horner Sr.
Tell you about Terry?
Tell me about Terry, yeah.
Terry left home at 13, and he started doing drugs at that time. He has spent about 90% of his adult life in prison. He molested me when I was younger. He threatened to kill me 3 different times, and he was not a very nice person. He beat my mother and stole money from her as well.
Did he ever steal from other family members?
Yes, from what I understand, he's stolen from both of my sisters. My ex-father-in-law was nice enough to give Terry a job, and he repaid him by coming back into the building that night and stealing all of the money and weapons that was in the building.
As an adult, did Terry ever live on your mother's property?
Yes, he did. We thought he had finally straightened his life out, and Mom gave him the Airstream that was on the property so that she could maintain her independence and he could maintain his.
And when you saw it, what were his living conditions like?
It was horrible. He had, a lot of drug users, especially Terry. Whenever they would get high, they would take stuff apart like coffee makers and microwaves and whatever else they could, and couldn't put it back together. When Mom passed, I hired someone to clean up the backyard because he had left it. Stuff was everywhere. And they found buckets, 5-gallon buckets of poop, because Terry wouldn't come in the house to use the bathroom.
Now, I know what an Airstream is, but can you tell?
Oh, I'm sorry. Airstream RV is a bumper pull trailer.
And did Terry ever, as an adult, live on your sister's property?
Yes, he lived on my oldest sister's property, and he lived in the garage, and then eventually he got a small bumper pull, and it was a gorgeous house, but in the backyard there was so much stuff: air conditioner parts, cars, boats, you name it, it was back there. He would just bring stuff home.
Now, what did your brother do for a living?
Steel. He could weld, but, sorry, I'm bluntly honest here. He could weld, a darn good welder, but because he was into drugs, he couldn't keep a job, so he would just steal whatever.
Now, do you have other family members that have substance abuse issues?
Yes, I do. My oldest sister was prescription drugs. My mother was a prescription drug. Tanner, from what I understand, was or is. We've got other nephews from my oldest sister. Two of the nephews and one of the nieces were substance abuse users.
Can you tell me about your mother?
Mom got married, I believe, at 16 the first time. She had 3 children by her first husband. And she got a divorce, and the 3 children, she dropped them off at Edna Gladney Adoption. Didn't tell anybody she did that. And she married my dad. They were together 18 months. I think I was an oops. And when she was a barmaid most of her life, and she worked dry cleaning. And she was, like I said, an alcoholic. I was born early. Looking back, I'm pretty sure a lot of my problems are due to her being an alcoholic. Whenever she married her 3rd husband, the 3 children that she dropped off at Edna Gladney, their paternal grandmother found out about them, went and picked them up, and she raised them for a while in Pentecostal church. Their beds were church pews, from what I understand. Then she got them all back. And
Was your mother ever abusive towards the children, you and your siblings?
she was emotionally and verbally abusive to all 4 of us. If the 4 of us was getting along as adults, she had to pit one against the other. And there would be so much drama. I eventually, whenever my mother passed, I cut ties with all of them. I don't do drugs. I have an occasional drink. I can't stand drama. It will, yeah, mess me up.
Did your mother suffer from a mental illness?
Yes, she did. She was bipolar. She had severe anxiety. She had depression, and doing the alcohol and mixing all of her prescription with all of that was not really a good thing.
What about other members of the Horner family? Are you aware of any mental illness?
I'm not entirely sure. My oldest sister, I do believe she had some because of the way that she would do the prescription drugs. She wouldn't take her heart medicine or her diabetes medicine. Well, she liked that Xanax. She would melt it in a spoon of water and take it that way.
What about when Terry and Melissa Horner were together? Were you around then?
I was around. I didn't see them much. I think I saw them together maybe 5 times. I saw Tanner probably 3 times in his life, if not 4.
And what was Terry like around that time?
Stoned all the time. Him and Melissa both were always stoned. So their house was horrible. There was trash everywhere. It seemed like wherever Terry went, he had to bring a bunch of junk. There was a bunch of trash. I don't know how people live in that.
And do you know how they met?
Terry met Melissa in a strip joint, from what I understand.
And do you know where they were working at that time? Was Terry working there?
I honestly don't know.
Okay. And you said you were around Tanner Horner 3 or 4 times. Was some of that when he was young?
Yes.
And who raised Tanner?
His maternal grandmother did.
Did you ever babysit Tanner?
I did twice.
Okay, and do you remember about what age that was?
He was a baby the first time, and he was about 5, maybe 6 the second time.
Can you describe what he was like at those ages?
He cried a lot. It was like nothing you could do could stop. You could change his diaper, you could hold him, you could put him to sleep. At 5, it was like he wore his heart on his sleeve, and saying that, you could go, don't do that, and he would just cry. And he went to run out to the street, and I grabbed him and I swatted him on his butt like that, and you would have thought I'd beat the tar out of him. He was crying and hiccuping, and we were at my ex-mother-in-law, and he looked at her and he said, she made me cry. And he just kept crying. I didn't know what to do with him because my children weren't like that. And I felt bad because I couldn't get him to stop crying.
Did you get was he? So you're saying he cried a lot. You're saying that compared to other children.
Yeah.
What about talking? Did he talk a lot?
No.
Have you seen him as an adult?
I seen him one time. My brother said, "Hey, Kim, this is Tanner," and I was like, I wouldn't recognize him if I saw him on the street. That's how often we saw each other. But I mean, that was the whole conversation.
Did he stop by your house or your mother's house one time with us or something?
Yes, he had a camper at my mother's house, and I thought it was another item that my brother drug up. And Mom wanted all of the stuff cleaned out of the backyard. She wanted that camper gone. My brother said that it was only going to be there for a week, and it'd been there for like, I don't know how long, 4 or 5 months. I don't know. I didn't know it was Tanner's. So I was acting on my mom's behalf, and I started looking for people on the phone to come and pull this camper out. And I had it hauled off. I told the guy, I don't want any money. Mom wants it gone, just make it go.
And was Tanner kind of a typical Horner man or kind of different?
Like I said, I couldn't tell you. I wasn't around him that much.
Now, I'm going to show you a couple pictures here, and I don't need you to use the names, but you can just tell me who these are, like in relation to you.
This picture of my brother and my 2 sisters and myself.
Can you identify by the exhibit number?
Yes, sir. That's Defense Exhibit 66. We moved to have it admitted and published to the jury.
Have you shown it to the state?
Yeah.
So you offer state, Defense 66?
Exhibit 66, Your Honor.
Okay, any objection?
Judge, if he wants to admit 67 as well, no objection to that either.
Yes, please. Let me
You move to admit
identify.
67?
I will, sir, as soon as she identifies that. Do you recognize the people in that?
Yeah, it's Tanner and my brother with a woman who has another child by him, and the 4 of us.
Defense 66 and 67 are admitted.
Your Honor, I will move to publish these and then I will pass those.
Okay. Cross-examination? Yes, come on. Yes, please. Just make sure you stand so that the jury can see her.
Ma'am, my name is James Stanton. I don't think you and I have met before, have we?
No, sir.
Can you hear me? Are we good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have are you able to hear low tones but not high tones? Is that you?
It's all over the place. As long as I see your lips, I'm good.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna make sure that we can talk, okay?
Perfect.
I don't have too many questions for you, ma'am.
Okay,
If you don't understand something or you don't hear something, you let me know.
absolutely.
Okay. Ma'am, I'm looking at this and you're talking a lot about Terry, your brother.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I
And you
don't
said,
tell many people he is.
okay, I can see why. The second part of this, you said he went to prison for a long time,
In and out.
in and out, and that was for drugs, right?
It was for a number of things. It was for theft, drugs. I believe his first wife, he was out on parole probation, I get that mixed up, and he beat her up and he went back to prison.
Okay. I didn't hear you say he had any sexual type offenses in there. Is it just drugs?
He molested me,
Right.
yes.
But other than what he.
But he did not
prison-
go to jail for that, no.
He didn't go to jail for
No.
that? Okay. I'm just trying to get a clearer picture.
Understandable.
And the second thing is, you said that the extent of your knowledge on the defendant, Tanner Horner, came from the 3 times you saw him in his life, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And once when he was a baby,
Yes, sir.
once when he was 5,
Yes, sir.
and then a tiny brief conversation when he
He
was
was
how old?
grown. I don't know how old he was, I'll be honest. He was grown.
And that's the extent of your knowledge
Yes, sir.
on the defendant.
Yes, sir.
Now, ma'am, let me just ask you while we're up here, and I'm not trying to be rude, are you a felon?
Am I what?
Are you a felon in
No, sir, I'm
prison?
not.
And I think you said you don't do drugs.
No, sir, I do not.
You don't, okay. Now, I noticed the defense asked you a lot about your family history.
Yes, sir.
And in your family history, it sounds like you had a pretty rough upbringing, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And I'm not gonna ask you any details of that whatsoever, okay?
I'm an open book.
Well, we appreciate that, but I'm still not gonna ask you.
Okay.
But it sounds like you had a pretty rough upbringing,
Yes, sir.
and including some form of inappropriate activity at the hands of your brother,
Yes, sir.
and being around your brother doing drugs,
Yes, sir.
right? And apparently being around your mom when he's doing all this stuff as well,
Yes, sir.
right? But in your life, you don't do drugs,
No, sir.
and you never killed anybody, have you?
No, sir.
And you've never sexually assaulted or molested anybody, have you?
No, sir.
That's what.
Redirect.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
May this witness be excused subject to any potential recall?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. Can I take it? Okay. Take her back there. Who do you have next?
Miss Sullivan. And Judge, maybe approach.
Yeah. What's her name? Good morning. You would raise your right hand for me. Solemnly swear or affirm testimony given this cause to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the true self to God. Okay, have a seat right here. There's a rule of evidence in effect. It says you cannot be in court unless you're testifying. And once you have testified, don't discuss your testimony with anybody else, okay? Gonna need for you to speak up.
Yes, sir.
Very good, okay. Ms. Anderson.
Miss Sullivan, how are you?
Hi. I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing well. Are you a little nervous about being here?
Yes.
Have you ever testified before?
No.
Ever been involved with anything like this before?
Not to this.
We are not going to refer to you by your first and last name. And just for your comfort, we have made sure that your face has been blurred out by the cameras, okay?
Thank you.
Ms. Sullivan, how do you know Tanner Horner?
He is my second cousin.
How does that work?
My
Y'all fall in the family tree.
father's sister, Jackie, she's my aunt, and then his mother is my cousin, Melissa, and then Tanner would be her son.
You had mentioned Tanner's mother. How do you know her? You said she was your
She's my
cousin?
first cousin.
Did you ever, did you know Tanner as a child?
As a baby and a toddler, I babysat him.
For how long did you babysit?
It was a few months, different periods. Like, it was during the summer when I was around 10, and then the next summer when I was around 11. But then after that, I no longer babysat him.
I understand that you babysat Tanner, but did Melissa ever babysit?
Yes, she used to babysit us when we were younger for my dad, yeah.
So it sounds like a circle.
Mm-hmm, yes.
How was she as a babysitter?
She was...
Is this difficult for you?
yeah.
We can take breaks as needed, Miss Sullivan.
My cousin, she was awesome. I looked up to her a lot. She was full of life then. She was a different person back then. I met my best friend because of her. She just was full of life then, that's all I can say. She was a happy person then.
Very different from the way she is today.
I don't recognize her.
How was Melissa as a babysitter?
She was fun, exciting, loved it when she came over. She was probably one of my favorite babysitters, and we had a lot. She kept us busy. There was me and my 3 brothers, so she had her hands full. She liked to play Fly to the Moon, where she'd kick us off her feet. She would take us to the park. She'd walk us around the neighborhood. She just had so much energy.
Miss Sullivan, how old were you when you began babysitting Tanner?
I think I was around 10-ish.
At the time, did you have any babysitting experience?
No.
And when you babysat him, was it just for a few hours at a time, or for what period of time?
No, it would be the weekend. I mean, it was started when he was an infant. She had to teach me how to bottle feed him, change his diaper, things like that. I really didn't have a clue. But even the first weekend, she left me alone all weekend with an infant.
And I'm going to stop you right there for a second. You're 10 years old,
Uh-huh.
taking care of an infant.
Yes,
And you're alone for the weekend.
yes. She worked all weekend.
And you spent the night over there?
Yes.
Did she ever check in with you over the weekend?
In the beginning, she would come home late at night or in the next morning. I would see her, and she would, feed us, show me what's going on for the day, what snacks, this and that. She would converse with me, and then she'd go on back to work. Yeah. It was late in the evening when she'd go to work.
Oh, okay. Do you know where she was working?
I knew it was a bar.
Do you know what kind of bar it was?
I did not know at the time.
Did you find it odd that as a 10-year-old you were being asked to take care of an infant?
Yes, it was very odd, but I also felt like, wow, she must think I'm pretty responsible, I didn't realize then, no, I really don't think I was.
So your perception today is a little different
Oh, yeah.
than it was then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, Ms. Sullivan, how often would you babysit Tanner?
When it was the summertime, it was pretty regular every weekend.
You said that you would spend the night over there. What was the neighborhood like where Ms. Horner lived at the
It was
time?
usually apartments, and then she would always have that talk with me, because she would leave me money in case we wanted to go to the corner store and get things, and she would tell me, this isn't the safest neighborhood, you need to be careful, you need to watch your back, you need to be careful if you're going to go. She's like, I'd just rather you not go, but I understand if you want to get out, and if you want to take Tanner to the park, just please be careful. And I always would. I'd be really careful. I'd always be really nervous. The community It was very scary.
When Ms. Horner would leave you for the weekend, would she leave you everything that you needed to take care of Tanner for the weekend?
Yes, and then some.
And then some? What do you mean by and then some?
Well, the following summer, he was more crawling around, potty trained. I would start a babysitting again for her, and this time around, I had already been dabbling with.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
But did she leave you a well-stocked kitchen?
Yes,
Okay, so
snacks, food, drinks, instructions. She would leave numbers on the fridge for me to get in contact with anybody and everybody, including her. Yeah.
So basically everything that a loving parent would leave for their child.
Yes.
When you babysat with Tanner over those weekends, did you know if it was, when you first got there, if it was going to be for the night or for the weekend?
No, I knew it was for the weekend.
What kinds of things would y'all do together, you and Tanner?
Watch cartoons, play, eat, walk to the park, go to the store, lounge around.
Now, you talked about what Ms. Horner was like when she was babysitting you. What was she like when you were babysitting Tanner?
I'm not understanding.
Well, we talked about, before you had said that Ms. Horner was full of life and would play games with you when she babysat you. And now you're babysitting her son. Was she still full of life at that time? Had she?
Yes, but she seemed more stressed. Didn't have time. Always gone. Always seemed stressed. Yeah, but she seemed like she was always trying. Like she was always trying to put in a good face, and so she was always trying. Yeah.
At the time, could you tell if she had been, was drinking or doing drugs?
Yeah. So I'm not sure really how it came about, but eventually, yes, I did realize, yeah.
And how could you tell?
Well, basically the following summers when she wanted me to come back to start babysitting him again, and this time she was like, do you want cash as payment again? And I was like, yeah. She's like, or do you want weed? And I was like, oh, well, yeah. That would be great too. So I had just gotten into that kind of area of stuff and things, and so.
How old were you at the time?
I was about 11, 12, yeah.
Now, before she started paying you with weed, she was paying you with cash. Were you well paid?
Yes.
Okay. Where was Tanner's father during all of this?
I don't know. He wasn't there. I've never met him that I know of.
Ms. Sullivan, when did you stop babysitting Tanner?
So my father, we moved in with my mom when I was 13 on the south side of Fort Worth. And then I kind of got lost in the city life and wrong crowds. And I stopped talking to them. I didn't want to babysit anymore,
You had your other life
Yeah,
going on?
yeah.
Now, Ms. Sullivan, we talked about Ms. Horner as a babysitter, and we talked about her providing for you while you were babysitting her son. Based upon your observations of Ms. Horner and Tanner, do you think she was a good mom?
At the time, you mean?
We'll start at the time.
Yes, at the time, yes.
And looking back now?
She was struggling. She did her best. She tried.
like the desire was there, but the ability not.
Yeah.
Ms. Sullivan, I want to talk to you now about Tanner, about your cousin. You said that he was an infant when you started babysitting him. So he was still in diapers?
Yes.
So you were the one that helped change his diapers and feed him and give him the bottle,
Yes.
and you helped putting him to sleep?
Hmm.
Where was he sleeping at the time? Was he in a crib or did he have his own bed?
It was a crib.
What kinds of things would y'all do together when you would babysit?
Play with all the little kid toys, watch a lot of cartoons. I would talk on the phone a lot. I was a teenager. We would go to the park. I'd walk to the store and get his snacks.
Was he an active child?
Yeah, he would have a lot of spurts of energy.
When you say spurts of energy, give us an example of what you mean by that.
Like, it's hard to explain. So my brother has ADHD, and he would get extremely hyper and excited. It was kind of like that, but as a little infant, if that makes, like a toddler, if that makes sense. But he would run around fast, speeding through, and it's just a kid to me,
A lot of energy.
Mhm.
All right. Did you have to keep a close eye on him?
Yes.
Would he ever get into things?
Yes.
What kinds of things would he get into?
I remember a big part of it was the coins we had to put away from him. It was like a piggy bank. He would eat a lot of coins.
He would what?
Eat a lot of coins, change, and then he'd poop them out. And I just remember a bunch being in the bottom of the toilet every time I'd wipe his butt. And I always thought that was strange, and Melissa would always be like, keep the change put away. We have to keep the change up.
So how old was he at the time?
And he was able to run around, like crawl around, run around, walk around.
All right, so you had to keep the coins put away because Tanner would eat them,
Yeah, almost like an obsession.
and after he ate them, he would poop them out?
Yes.
Would he ever try to grab them after he had pooped them out?
I do not recall that, but yeah, I don't recall.
How often did this happen?
In the beginning, it was a regular basis. That's why it was such an issue, to make sure you keep the coins put away.
Were you ever concerned about him doing this?
I thought it was odd, but I also thought it was funny. I mean, I don't know, I was a kid.
And I think you told us that you had to put the coins up. Where did you have to put them?
Well, I never brought change in. And if I went to the store and got change, that's when I'd make sure they were put up high or in a bowl where he couldn't get to them.
And again, how often would this happen? That every time he saw change?
Yeah, if there was change around, it was inevitable.
And so that's why you had to take those precautions?
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Sullivan, over the years that you babysat Tanner, did you have the chance to watch his personality develop?
It was a small period of time, but yeah, a little bit.
And at some point, did you ever begin to think that he was just a little different from the other kids?
I kind of always thought he was a little different, but being so young, I just thought he was a kid.
And now being older?
Now being older, I look back and I realize he was a little different.
Why do you say he was a little different?
He would have real high highs and real low lows, and sometimes he would just be in the corner by himself, and I wouldn't really know why. And, now that I'm older and a parent, I look back, I'm like, oh, well, maybe he was pooping in his diaper. But at that time, everything, it was just such an extreme. He would be going and running and hyper, and then all of a sudden quiet. And I'd go in there and he's just sitting in the corner.
What was he doing in the corner?
Nothing.
Was he facing the corner or was he facing out into the room?
Usually he was facing the corner.
So he would put himself in timeout?
Kind of, yeah.
You had mentioned the word extreme. What did you mean when you said that he would have extreme highs and extreme lows?
Sometimes he'd get so hyper, it'd almost be aggressive. Like, he just, or his fits would be a little aggressive, more than I would think that it was necessary.
When you say aggressive, are you talking about aggressive towards you?
Yeah, just in general and fit throwing, like,
Did he ever try to hit you?
There may have been an occasion, but it was usually with fit throwing. It wasn't like he was intentionally hitting me, you know.
Were you afraid that he was going to hit you or kick you intentionally?
It wasn't a concern of mine because he was so little.
At any time when he had these fits, could you tell what the cause of them were?
Usually just not getting his way or particular snack or show. The real high energy just would come out of nowhere, you know.
When he had the fits, were you ever able to calm him down?
Yes, it would take a while.
What would you do to calm him down?
Sometimes I try to hold him. He didn't like that. I would try to direct his attention to something more fun or just try to distract him.
Were you ever at a point where you couldn't control him and had to call his mom?
There would be times I would call her, lots of times because, like I said, I was young. I didn't know a whole lot. So I would probably call her in the beginning really 2 or 3 times a night.
And by the time that you stopped babysitting for Tanner, did those calls become less frequent?
Yes. Yeah, near the end I wasn't calling at all for any reason. And that was usually when I wouldn't see her the whole weekend. Like I said, in the beginning she would come home late at night or the next morning checking on us. But then the following summer, as I was older and he was a little older, and we kind of got a little more routine, you know, it was easier.
Oh, Ms. Sullivan, you previously talked about some of the things that you would do while you babysat Tanner. When you were there, did you play with him more often, or did he play by himself more often?
I would say he played with himself more often.
Could you tell, based upon your observations, if that was his choice?
Usually, yes.
What would he play when he was by himself? What was he doing?
I don't recall.
That's fine if you don't. When he was playing by himself, did he seem to enjoy being by himself?
I don't know about enjoyed, but content.
Did you ever try to distract him and get his attention to maybe come back and play with you?
Yes.
Were you able to do that?
Sometimes.
What kinds of things would you do to try to get his attention?
Bring out some of his toys, you know, light up things, noisemakers, turn on a certain show, things like that.
Now, for the times that you were able to get his attention back to playing together, Did that last, or would he go off by himself again?
He'd always go off by himself again.
Ms. Sullivan, I want to talk to you a little bit about Tanner's communication skills. When you were babysitting him, did you ever have difficulty trying to communicate with him?
There was no communication with us, like, not verbally.
What do you mean by that?
He was too young still, like, to really talk, you know.
And by the time that, okay, I want to back up a second. You said that you had babysat him from the time he was an infant, and how many years had you babysat?
I want to say it was about 2 consecutive summers, if I can remember correctly. Because the first summer he was an infant, and then the second summer he was crawling and, you know, kind of stumble walking.
And then I think you had a third summer where he was walking?
Well, it was during the potty training, and he was kind of walking, yeah.
Was he at all verbal with you?
Very little, very little.
Being a mother, comparing Tanner's communication skills at that age and your child's communication skills at their age, were they the same or was one delayed?
I feel like his was delayed.
Were there times that you had difficulty understanding him when you were trying to communicate with him?
Yes, all the time.
Now, Ms. Sullivan, looking back on your time spent babysitting Tanner, did you have fun?
Yes.
And did you enjoy babysitting him?
Yes.
Oh, why?
Because it gave me a little bit of freedom, you know, responsibility, cash in my pocket. Sometimes I'd get to see my cousin, you know.
At that time how would you describe Tanner as, would you say that he was affectionate, not affectionate, sweet kid, not a sweet kid? How would you describe him?
He was a pretty happy kid. Yeah, he was pretty good, go-lucky, happy, joyful kid, it seemed like, yeah.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes.
All right, everyone may be seated. We are ready to proceed. Mr. Goldman.
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I passed the
I'm
witness.
sorry, Miss Anderson. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yep, done, pass the witness.
Oh, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, my name is James Stainton. I'm the district attorney for Wise and Jack County. You and I have not met before today, correct?
Correct.
And I'm just gonna ask you a very few questions here.
Okay.
And we're gonna let you get out of here, okay?
All right.
The last time you would have seen the defendant, Tanner Horner, would have been 1992?
Yeah, I would. You want me to think of years? Hold on.
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions. Maybe I can help you with that.
Okay.
You said here the last time you saw him, you were 10 or 11 years old. Is that right?
Yeah. It was about 11, 12 was last.
Hypothetically, if your birthday was in 91, right? You were
Yes.
10, 11 years old. And the last time you would have seen him, that would have been, excuse me, if your birthday was 81, you would have
81.
seen him in 92 or 93.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that accurate?
That's about accurate. Yes, sir.
So that's the last time you physically laid eyes on him was in 1993?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that all that you did as a 10 or 11-year-old was babysitting?
Yes.
And all of your memories and things that you're being asked about today, about his communication skills, all of these other things you're asked about, that's from 1993.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. You indicated a little bit here that I think you said you had wrong place, wrong time, or associated with the wrong people at some point. Is that right?
Yes.
And I'm not going to get into that, but let me just ask you, did you ever kill anybody?
No.
Did you ever kidnap anybody?
No.
Did you ever sexually assault a child?
No.
That's a witness.
Redirect.
No, Your Honor.
May this witness be excused subject to any potential recall.
Fine with the state.
Good with the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. Who do you have next?
Your Honor, Dr. Speck.
Come up, please, sir. Good morning. Remind you, you're still under oath, okay? Have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, this witness has been previously sworn to testify truthfully. Mr. Goldman.
Dr. Speck, I'm going to go ahead and hand you Defense Exhibit 48 and Defense Exhibit 68. Okay? And let me see if you can identify both of those.
Yes.
Mr. Goldman, I don't know if he's been actually introduced to the jury.
Go ahead and introduce yourself to the jury.
Sure. So my name's Dr. Aaron Specht. I'm an assistant professor at Purdue University with an expertise in exposure assessment and environmental health.
Now we can
Yes, one is my CV, and I haven't seen it printed out before. One is a report I produced for this case.
Okay, and do those appear to be true and accurate copies of both of those documents?
Yes.
Now we move to admit both, what were those numbers, 48 and,
What are the
48.
exhibit numbers, Doctor?
48 on my CV and 68 on the report.
Any objection?
No objection, Joe.
Defense Exhibit 48 and Defense Exhibit 68 are admitted.
so now my first question will state your name. So you said your area of expertise is medical, physics, and environmental health?
Yes, medical physics, environmental health, and exposure assessment. Yeah.
Let's back up and go through your education, please.
Okay. So I got my bachelor's degree from Purdue University in physics, and I did my PhD in medical physics in the School of Health Sciences at Purdue University. And then I did a postdoc training at Harvard T.H. John School of Public Health in environmental health and epidemiology.
And what are your areas of research?
My areas of research focus on designing instrumentation to allow us to do environmental measures easier, so looking for environmental contaminants, then applying that into different studies, epidemiological studies, looking at potential health effects associated with those environmental contaminants, and looking at the toxicokinetics and the toxicological features associated with those environmental contaminants, which is essentially just how they go through the body and how they interact.
Okay, hang on. You
Sorry.
talk real fast.
Sorry about that.
All right.
I'll slow it down a bit.
Thank you. Go ahead.
May also need the microphone.
Okay.
Yeah, pull that closer to you.
Is it this one or this
That
one?
That one. Okay.
And does that include research on X-ray fluorescence?
Yeah, so a lot of the instrumentation that I end up developing is focused primarily on X-ray fluorescence work. And so I can explain what X-ray fluorescence kind of is.
Let's come back to that in a minute
Okay.
and just get through the basics first.
Okay.
The qualifications part that we always have to walk through. So let's go to what are your academic appointments right now?
So my main appointment is at Purdue University, where I'm an assistant professor. I have an appointment at the Harvard T.H. John School of Public Health. I'm a visiting scientist there, and I'm also the director of their trace metals lab. So that just means there's a bunch of people who ask questions about metals, and they don't know all that much about it themselves, so they reach out to us, and we guide them through designing the study or which measurements to make, any number of questions.
And have you published any peer-reviewed articles?
Yes, I've published about 70 different peer-reviewed articles. So a peer-reviewed article is something where I design a study and I write it up, and then I'll send it out to a journal who will send it to anonymous reviewers from the scientific community who will then judge what the merit of it is in the context of my scientific field. And then it can get accepted or rejected based off their feedback.
And generally what topics do you cover in your published articles?
So it's the same kind of topics that I do most of my research on. Environmental health, exposure assessment, designing these instruments, all of that.
And have you been asked to be a peer reviewer for any journals in your field?
Oh yeah, more than a dozen.
And are you a member of any professional societies or scholarly organizations?
Yes, so I'm a member of the Society of Toxicology, and I'm actually the vice president for the metals specialty section as part of that. I'm a member of the International Society for Trace Element Research in Humans, and I'm the secretary for the society there. I'm also a member of the Health Physics Society, the International Society for Environmental Epidemiology, and the International Society of Exposure Science.
And have you received any fellowships, research grants, awards, or things like that?
Yeah, so I have funding from the National Institutes of Health. I have some foundation funding. I have funding from the Department of War, from any number of potential federal funders, and also a slew of foundations as well.
Was one of those from the Department of Defense?
Yes, yeah, the Department of War now. But
Okay,
yes.
Department of War. And have you previously testified in court about portable XRF, that X-ray radiofluorescence
Yes.
measurement?
Yes, so I previously testified in the Flint water crisis trials related to the lead exposure during that case.
And besides you testifying, have other experts relied upon your findings when they were testifying in court?
Yes, they have.
Now, in that Flint water crisis case, how many people did you test for using the portable XRF for that case?
I believe we ended up testing about 12,000 people that were in the community there.
Now, what are the biomarkers for lead exposure?
So the biomarkers that are traditionally used for lead exposure would be like blood. And you probably are familiar with this. If you have kids, they would get a blood screening, and a blood lead level would be given. This is actually a fairly recent measure of what people have been exposed to, because when lead goes into your body, it actually is going to dissipate fairly quickly from blood. The blood is just a car that transports it around the rest of the body. But when it goes in your body, it looks a lot like calcium. And so that's how it does all of these bad things in the body, is it hijacks places that calcium would ordinarily go. So it will pass through the blood-brain barrier and do stuff in your brain. The blood transports it on the red blood cells, which is, normally where that would happen. And as a consequence as well, the lead will actually store primarily in bone, which is where calcium would normally store. So when it gets into the bone, 90% of the ingested lead actually will store in the bone. And then your bone's going to stay there. It's not here today and gone tomorrow. It turns over very, very, very slowly. So when we actually do a measurement, so with our device, we are able to measure bone lead levels instead of blood lead levels. And that bone lead level actually gives us a very cumulative measure of what someone's been exposed to their entire life. And that's important because, lead, it has this impact, and it's going to do something in the brain by passing the blood-brain barrier. But all of our toxicological studies and the general scientific consensus shows that those effects are irreversible. So even though we're going to monitor it with blood, and maybe that will dissipate over time, those effects are going to linger and they're going to stay there for the rest of your life. So when we are able to do a cumulative measure of what someone's been exposed to, that is a more effective measure of what the potential health outcomes are associated with that level of exposure.
So how long would that exposure be detectable in the blood?
In the blood, it normally dissipates fairly quickly within a couple weeks. So the half-life is about 30 days. So that means if you were exposed to something 30 days ago and we measured it today, half of it would still be present in the blood. The equivalent then for bone lead would be 30 years. So if you were exposed to something 30 years ago and we measured it today, half of it would still be present in your bone.
So you mentioned, like, for the blood testing, one way to do it. How do you test for lead in blood?
You can do it a couple different ways. They're really technical analytical chemistry techniques. So one is inductive coupled plasma mass spectrometry, which essentially you digest the blood and you send it through a plasma flame, and then it goes through this magnetic quadrupole system, and it looks for mass to charge ratios, and it identifies a given isotope of lead. The other one, which is much more commonly used because it's much cheaper, is anodic stripping voltammetry, which is, they have these little kits. They call them the lead care kits, and you can drop a piece of blood onto it and then stick it in, and it'll give you a result in about 5 minutes. And those are typically used by health departments when they do your kids' screening. That's what they'll use.
What about bone testing for lead? How's that done?
Bone testing for lead is always done using X-ray fluorescence. The alternative is we do a bone biopsy. But with the X-ray fluorescence, we can do it non-invasively. So what we do is we have some kind of X-ray source, and we put that on the shin bone. And what it's going to do is it's going to send little X-rays into the bone. And each of those is going to interact on an atom-by-atom basis and make those atoms give off signals that are specific to whatever elements they are. And one of those elements happens to be lead, and we can go back and track it, so see how much lead is there, and then relate that to a concentration based off some normalizations we do for the particular physiology of a given person.
So you're talking about one of the elements. What are some of the other elements you might look for with that same technology?
We can look at iron and zinc and some other toxic elements like mercury, arsenic, and cadmium.
And when was that technology developed?
So we originally started doing these bone lead tests back in the 1970s. And this technology has iterated over time, and we've gotten pretty good at it. since the 1970s. We used these old devices with a radioisotope source, and we got this radioisotope source from a cyclotron that was, we had some sources in the U.S. originally, but right now the only cyclotron was based in Russia, so we can't get that one anymore. But the device itself was about 200 pounds. It used liquid nitrogen cooling for a high-pure germanium detector, and it took about 30 minutes to do a measurement.
And what about the portable XRF?
Yeah, so the current device we use is not 200 pounds. It's about 5 pounds. It looks a lot like a barcode scanner. And you can do the same kind of thing. You hold it up to the middle of the shin bone, and you're able to actually determine the elemental content of that bone. And so it's using an X-ray tube source rather than a radioisotope source. And now instead of having that huge 200 pounds of liquid nitrogen, we use a thermoelectric cooler, which is much more compact.
Your Honor, unless there's an objection, I'm just going to put my demonstrators up.
Any objection? No, Your Honor. Okay.
Okay. So you kind of described these pretty well already, but what are we looking at here?
This is the previous iteration of the X-ray fluorescence devices. So you can see the big liquid nitrogen dewar there. That's where all the liquid nitrogen is stored. The detector on the front, and then that little black dot is actually covering up the radioisotope source on the front of that. And these took about, again, 30-minute measurements. We used these pretty extensively in the 90s and early 2000s with a whole bunch of different cohort studies of lead.
And what's that?
So this is the portable XRF, the one that I use now to do bone lead measurements, and we've used it for the past 15 years or so to do that. It takes about 3 minutes to do the measurement rather than 30 minutes. Again, it has the X-ray tube source, and it's battery operated, so I can take it with me and go into the field and do measurements that way.
And do you know which model that is?
That's a Thermo Fisher XL3T Gold D Plus model.
Now, is this commercially available?
This is a commercially available device that is traditionally used in industrial settings like mining, but we've adapted it with our research so that we can use it for these types of settings. We basically changed software slightly so that it's able to collect and stay stagnant in a particular mode that gives us the readings we want to see for our bone lead measurements.
You said the software, so like 5 pounds, this is controlled by software, this isn't you just pushing buttons or anything?
No, so the tablet you can see on the device actually has a firmware loaded up, so it has, like some kind of operating system, and you can go through and make adjustments to the system through that.
So you're adjusting the settings, you're not building something from scratch?
Correct.
Okay. And how do you get the data off of that?
So the data is stored locally on the device on a hard drive there, but you can also get it off the device using a USB cable and plugging it into a computer.
So can you, when you take your measurement, you're able to look and see what the data is on the device?
You can see the data on the device, yes, that is correct.
And are there any studies or anything to show that the portable XRF model that you use is accurate, is as accurate as previous generations of XRF?
Oh yes, so we've done dozens of different studies looking at, human in vivo studies where we actually looked at this portable XRF versus the one on the previous slide with the huge liquid nitrogen tank. We've done studies of cadavers where we were able to actually do the measurement and then section off a piece of bone that we would then analyze using a chemistry lab. We've done this in wildlife studies and any number of different settings where we've actually validated that this device is measuring what we think it should be measuring.
Okay. Let's dumb that one down for just a little bit. So if you're wanting to know if the new thing you're trying to measure with, so you get a new plastic ruler, and you want to know if it measures the same as your old wooden ruler.
Yeah,
You're comparing what measurements you get with the wooden ruler to what you get with the plastic ruler, right?
correct.
So
Yep.
you use the old generation and said, what readings did it get? And then use the new generation to see what readings it gets, and if they're the same. That's kind of what we're talking about.
Yep, that is effectively the exact thing we're doing with this.
So like somewhere in the world, there's a rod that tells you what a meter actually length is, and every other meter stick in the world is supposed to match that.
Yes.
Okay. So, but you went further than that, and you actually took cadavers, measured them with this, cut a piece of bone out of it, for just in layman's terms,
Yep.
dissolved that, and saw how much lead was in it, and see if that matched.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's how you determine that this particular model works.
Yes.
Have there been studies completed in the United States and internationally to verify how this works? That it does work?
Yeah, so I've done many studies in the U.S. At various universities, Duke University, Harvard University, Boston University, Medical University of South Carolina. I have a study actually at University of Texas, Arlington. And yeah, I have dozens of studies there. On the international stage, I've done measurements in 14 different countries, including Iraq and India and China. I've taken this with me all over the world.
Now, I put some images up of kind of different places, and this kind of is just demonstrating how you actually would use it. And we're talking about the tibia bone. Is that the bone we're talking about, the front of the leg?
Yes, yeah, that would be the shin bone, yeah.
So with the portable one, I guess in that middle photo, you see with the portable one, you hold it for 3 minutes, and then the one in the background, you would actually have to be...
You'd be like strapped to the chair
30
for
minutes.
30 minutes.
Okay.
And it was very difficult in that study because we were trying to measure kids and we watched one movie probably 300 times.
Try to get them to hold still.
Yeah.
Okay. So does the FDA approve using the model portable XRF on humans?
Yes.
And how is that done?
So it has a 510K clearance, which is essentially saying it's substantially equivalent to something of equal risk.
And is this use of the portable XRF for bone lead measurement recognized by the Center for Disease Control?
Yes. So the CDC, the Environmental Protection Agency, the NIH, they all recognize this technology. And actually, I was a subject matter expert and a reviewer for the Integrated Science Assessment of Lead, which is this huge EPA 2,000-page document that goes through all of the potential impacts of lead in the body, but also, importantly, the exposure assessment. And my role was to look at the toxicology and also measurements of bone.
Now, are you aware of other institutions that are using this same model, XRF, to do bone lead measurement in humans?
Yes, so I've listed some off before, but Duke, Harvard, Boston University, Johns Hopkins is using it for humans. These are all just for humans too. Medical University, South Carolina, Purdue University, Indiana University. I'm forgetting probably a dozen, but.
Can you give me an approximate number how many bone lead measurements have been completed with your device?
With our device alone, probably more than 60,000 measurements have been completed on humans.
And did you examine Tanner Horner?
I did.
Did you review any records in preparation for that examination?
In preparation for the examination, I did not.
Okay. Have you reviewed any records that would reveal potential sources of lead exposure for Tanner?
I believe I saw something that he had some lead paint exposure potentially. And then I heard the testimony this morning about him eating coins. That's problematic for lead exposure.
Well, let's go ahead and skip to that, and tell me about how people get exposed to lead.
Normally, people get exposed to lead through a variety of routes. You can have inhalation, ingestion, or absorption. So primarily inhalation and ingestion being the principal sources of potential exposure. If you think back into the 90s when we had lead in gasoline, we were all exposed to a lot of inhalation sources of lead as everyone was driving cars around that was putting it in the air. I'd say nowadays most of the higher sources of lead are from lead paint or ingesting lead as a kid. And again, this kind of goes hand in hand with the toxicology of it. So when a younger kid gets exposed to an amount of lead, they actually have a greater percentage of having that actually taken up in the body. So the coins went through his body, and maybe some of it came off, but most of it hopefully went through the rest of his body. But that some of it that came off was taken up in the body very, very easily because of his age, versus an adult who would have probably half the amount would actually get taken up in the body. And that goes with a lot of things, and nutritional needs and whatnot, as a growing kid.
And remember when you conducted your exam on Tanner?
I don't remember the exact date. I think it was late last year.
Okay. And was that in the Tarrant County Jail?
The one right over here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was one and the same. I walked by it this morning. I was like, oh, okay, I remember where I am.
Okay. So I assume it was easier to use the portable RF
Yes.
than
Yep.
anything else. All right. So just walk us through what you did to use that with Tanner.
Okay, so the procedure is fairly straightforward. So with the device, we power it on. We have Tanner lift up his pant leg, revealing his shin. And what we do is you set up the software, make sure it's going to operate in the right mode, and you'll align that parallel to his shin bone. So the x-ray tube comes out at a slight angle, so being parallel allows us to go up the bone rather than across and potentially miss. Then when we have it placed correctly, we energize the device, and we essentially just stare at each other for 3 minutes while the device collects its data. Then we turn it off, and the data is collected and stored on the device.
And is that the correct protocol for doing that collection?
Yes, that's the same methodology we've used in every measurement for the past 15 years.
And what were the results of your test?
The test showed that he had been exposed to lead, and it had accumulated in his bone to a degree of an exact measure of 12.1 micrograms of lead per gram bone mineral content. So that unit is the way we've done bone lead measurements since the 1970s, essentially.
And can you kind of put that into context for us? What does that mean?
Yes, so bone lead, again, since it's giving us a cumulative measure of what someone's been exposed to, the important thing is to actually have age-matched control data. So we can look at someone else who's the same age and say, okay, well, this is what they would have had in their bone, because it accumulates and it doesn't go away. So we have a population study we typically use for this, which was based in Toronto. And in that study, the same age group as Mr. Horner would have had about 0.5 micrograms of lead per gram bone mineral. And to put that further into perspective, so his level was 24 times higher than that comparison group, first of all. Secondly, you can do a total body bone, or a total body lead measurement. So because we have this in units of bone mineral content, and everyone has a certain amount of bone mineral content over their body, we can actually determine how much total lead he had in his body. And so that comparison, he came back with about 33,000 micrograms of lead. Quite high, compared to his peers at closer to, I believe, 1,500 micrograms of lead.
Okay, and are you aware of how many micrograms of lead it would take to potentially have an effect on someone?
So the CDC sets this level of blood lead, that is the level of concern, and it's at 3.5 micrograms per deciliter. And we actually show that there is harm at lower levels, and the CDC, the Environmental Protection Agency, the World Health Organization, every scientific organization of merit has said that no level of lead is good for you. But if we do the same total body estimate with that 3.5 micrograms per deciliter, you get to about 250 micrograms of lead as the dose that can cause harm. And so 250 micrograms, very different than 33,650 micrograms.
And I know you said this, but just to clarify, when we're talking about the group that we're comparing it to, it would make a difference in age because you were talking about lead being more prevalent in society, and if you lived in the 70s, you'd have more exposure. So is that why you have to break it to age groups?
Yeah, that's essentially it. So if you're older, maybe you had the exposure from the 90s when you were inhaling the leaded gasoline that was being combusted. And so we'd have to account for that. So that's why we do that age comparison, because this is going to be reflective of what you were exposed to in your life. So you have to do an age match control.
And so over time, has that data kind of been updated? You said you were using the Toronto study. Is there a reason why you use that one?
The Toronto study is the most recent study with age-matched control data that we have. There was previous studies from the 90s, but that would be irrelevant because back in the 90s, we had so many other sources of lead exposure in our bodies that it wasn't going to, be as significant as a difference.
And so, to summarize, what is your opinion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
So my opinion is that Mr. Horner experienced a significant amount of lead exposure that would have impacted his health, and particularly his neurological health.
I'll pass the witness, John.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Couple questions about, Dr. Speck, about this particular device that you're using. It's called a XL3T Gold, is that correct?
Yes, that's
And
correct.
it's made by Thermo Fisher,
Yes.
okay? And this particular device, and you said that you had some FDA, what was the number you used on the FDA?
510K.
And what do you have from Thermo Fisher giving you authority or direction in using this on humans?
So Thermo Fisher doesn't market the device for these types of tests. We actually do the modifications to the device to allow it to be able to be used on humans. So Thermo Fisher doesn't actually have the approvals needed to go through that process.
So the manufacturer of this device does not approve this device for use on humans, is that correct?
They only have it for the billions of dollars they make for mining and whatnot.
I'm going to ask you again. They don't approve it for use on humans.
They do not sell it for that purpose, no.
Now, as we talked about this, you indicated that your final opinion is that Mr. Horner had a significant lead exposure. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you talked about the coins being an issue, right?
Yes.
And as part of your review for this case, Can you point to anything in his medical records where he had some form of lead toxicity?
I'm not a doctor, and I did not review his medical records.
Right, but you've made some opinions here about people getting significant exposures and the results of those exposures, have you not?
Yes.
Okay. And with regard to that, if somebody has lead toxicity at some point, that's something that's going to be needed to be treated by a doctor, right?
Not necessarily. So we have a couple treatments for high lead exposure. And primarily the one treatment we use often is called chelation treatment. And so this is really the only intervention we have when it comes to high levels of exposure. And so chelation essentially would go into the blood and it would pull out any amount of metals, just general metals though, it's not just lead. So they only use it in cases where there's really high exposures. But again, that focuses primarily on the blood.
And you don't have anything that you can point to in Mr. Horner's history wherein he received any type of chelation treatment?
No, I cannot.
And you would have said that at some point he received I'm going to make a presumption here, you help me with this, a pretty high dose of lead at some point in his childhood, is that right?
Yes, he would have had to have had some exposure to lead during his childhood to accrue this amount of cumulative lead dose.
Now, you said some exposure. Now, I'm looking at your numbers here, and at 24 times higher, that doesn't seem to me to be just some exposure. That seems to be a pretty massive exposure.
Yes, that would be a pretty massive exposure.
Okay. And I know you're not a medical doctor, but a massive exposure like that, is that potentially lethal?
If it was all at once, it could be, but the lethality associated with blood lead levels varies quite a lot by individual. So I've reviewed some cases before where individuals have had blood lead levels of greater than 100 micrograms per deciliter, and they still haven't passed away yet.
Okay. So these numbers that we're talking about here, you said that his level is 12.1 micrograms, and what it should be is 0.5 micrograms. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's where you get that 24 times or 2,400% number.
Yes.
Right. So one of my questions to you is at that level, how is it that Mr. Horner is still walking around and not having some effect from that? How is that possible?
Well, I'm not claiming that he doesn't have any effect from it. He does have an effect from it.
But at that level, at that massive a level that we're talking about, how is he still alive?
So there's levels, there's scales to the amount of exposure needed. The dose is what's really dependent, and when the dose happened over time. Again, the lead is going to come into the body and it's going to have some irreversible impacts, but the lethality of it is really dependent on how fast that happens.
Okay. And you said something about you tested a bunch of people in Flint that had a water crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Were they as high as Mr. Horner at 12.1, or were they lower as an average?
I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but on average they were lower.
Okay. So the people in Flint who drank from all that contaminated water for, I would assume 30, 40, 50 years, is that right? Potentially?
No, the Flint water crisis was they did have lead pipes, but they swapped the water source, and that led to a huge amount of leaching of lead into their water system.
Right, and these people were exposed to it for a fairly long period of time, were they not?
Not that long, not 30 years or 10 years or even 5 years in some cases.
But their levels were lower than Mr. Horner's.
Yes.
Now, what I'm trying to figure out here a little bit is you said something about, and I'm not a scientist, I'm going to have you help me here.
Yeah.
is that he had a total lead amount of 33,650 micrograms in his body.
Yes.
Okay, I want to talk about that number.
Okay.
You're telling me that there is that many micrograms physically located in his body?
Yes. Integrated into his bone.
Okay, so let me just put this on a scale and ask you, 33,650 micrograms. I'm not a scientist. Is that a, I mean, I'm just looking at something here. Is that a cupful?
No.
Okay. And in fact, do you know the conversion to grams? How many grams that would be in his system?
0.03.
0.03365?
It'd be 33,000 times 1 e to the minus 6. So,
I'm going to trust you on that.
I don't know if I trust myself on that, but
All right. So I guess my question is 0.03 grams. So if we were to extract it all out of his body, 0.03 grams, I mean, is it as much as this right here? Is that 0.03? How much is 0.03 grams?
it doesn't seem like very much. But again, this is something, we ingest a lot of it, and maybe a lot of it's going to pass through our body. But this is stuff that's actually been incorporated into our body. And so it doesn't take all that much to cause harm. And in terms of the toxicology of this, we know, so this was actually just the bone content. But the bone content, you're not super worried about the bone content. In toxicological studies, we have shown that the bone is a good corollary for what is actually in the brain as well. So we can use this as a determining factor. Okay, well then his brain was exposed to this amount over some amount of time as well. And that's more impactful.
Right. I'm just trying to figure this out. I'm trying to figure out how much is it. I mean, 0.03 grams, is that like a BB? Is that what we're talking about? That's the total amount?
It could be on the same order, yeah.
Okay, so something, we're talking in the entirety of his whole body, something like this.
Yes, but it's actually incorporated into his body. And again, it's 24 times higher than what any one of his peer groups would have been exposed to.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Briefly. So you mentioned before that, I guess, the CDC, the EPA, the Department of War, Duke, Johns Hopkins, I think you said the Medical College of South Carolina, Purdue University, a bunch of places do use this portable device to detect bone lead in here.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And we talked before about other experts relying on your findings. I assume those experts are relying on those findings because lead did have an effect on the person.
Yes, exactly.
And we're talking about a BB, I guess that's the size of a pill too, and those can have effects on people.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Mr. State.
Yes. One last question here. You talked about the normal test that a doctor would do would be a blood test. And you said that goes out of their system in how long?
So the half-life is about 30 days, yeah. And they do the blood test, again, primarily because the only treatment available is acting in the blood.
Right. And so it wouldn't surprise you if Tanner Horner's medical records indicated he tested essentially negative for blood when he got tested, would you?
No, it wouldn't surprise me necessarily, depending on when that test occurred versus when he was actually exposed.
But at this level that what you're talking about here, this extreme level, this massive amount of lead, according to you, in his system, how is it possible that with this much lead, according to you, in his system, that he still tests zero?
Well, I mean, it could easily have been, tested at very different time points in his life. So if you test blood lead level very recently and he was exposed when he was 2 or 3, then the blood test could come back effectively zero. And again, this is effectively zero because even those blood tests aren't 100% accurate.
That's what it's showing.
Nothing further.
I'm sorry?
Nothing further.
May this witness be finally excused?
Yes, sir.
Good to stay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Hand me those exhibits. Okay, we're gonna get lunch on the way for you, okay? And so, enjoy it, and we'll see you back this afternoon, okay? All right? One o'clock, everybody.
I mean, I couldn't answer that.
Judge,